Welcome back, dear listeners. Again, this is what Jean and I are following on from our discussion of Black Widow and Loki. Will be some interconnection, so if you want to, please listen to the previous episode. Anyway, let's get cracking. So, Jean, we're going to be talking about simultaneous releasing, and this interlinks with Black Widow, since Disney finally released the numbers involving their simultaneous release of that film.
Mm-hmm.
Because it made, over the first weekend, 80 million domestically, 60 million on Disney Plus Premium, and then another something like 78 internationally. So, and this is like the first, because argues the first true experiment of this simultaneous release model.
Yeah, and I was shocked to see how well it did on Disney Plus.
Yeah, because yeah, I was a bit as well. I can understand it, obviously, depending on your state or your nation, that it's things might not be as open as they as they have been. But yeah, so it's sort of like, you could argue this is ammunition to continue this simultaneous release model.
Yeah, and I mean, just from a completely non-scientific study of talking to people I know who have Disney Plus, there's definitely a large number of them, mostly people with young kids who they didn't want to bring to a theater, who are willing to shell out what it costs $30 here to get the film early on Disney Plus. Me personally, I went to the theater to see it because I have one of those cinema loyalty programs where it's cheaper for me to just go to a movie theater than to pay $30. But I absolutely understand the general convenience of it, particularly if you have a lot of people who want to watch it and you can get them all in one place and watch it together.
Yeah, so I was in the same position as you, because it was either I could pay £20 for the premium release and watch it on my Apple computer, or I pay the $9.99 I'm already paying for to go to my local Odeon. I think, yeah, I knew what choice was the more economical for me. Yeah. And then pay for the Blu-ray when it comes out.
Yeah, and then for me too, it's interesting because I have regular Disney Plus. I don't have the premium add-on, much to the dismay of my family who share my Disney Plus with me. But I also have access to something like HBO Max, where I get all the Warner Brothers releases the day they're released online, and I find I'm much more likely to watch one of those Warner Brothers films on HBO Max and not go to the theater to see it. But I'm not willing to pay $30 to go watch Black Widow on my TV when I could, go for, I guess break it down. I pay $20 a month for unlimited movies at the movie theater. Well, yeah, it's going to be much more economical for me to go to a movie theater and see it than it is for me to pay the money. So I guess if I get the release for essentially free with my subscription, I'm definitely going to watch it on the streaming service. But if they're going to make me pay, I'm much more likely to go to a theater and see it.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same boat as you. I can understand, like, for families, it's probably more economic, and you already mentioned it, it's more economical to pay $30 or £20 if you say if it's mum, dad, 2 kids for a family film, and probably more comfortable for the kids, because I'm sure you've been into family films and you've got like little kids screaming or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can pause it and you can stop it, and if someone needs to go to bed, you have that freedom.
Yeah. Though I think the whole idea of simultaneous releasing is not like it's absolutely brand new invention. So I did do an article once for Pop Culture Maniacs. Again, listeners, read it. I'm very good at this. I'm also very, very biased towards myself because there have been like experiments. Apparently, Dog Wolf, who do a lot of documentary releases in the UK, they tried it in 2005 with releasing a film in cinemas, DVD and digital purchase. The most famous example I can think of was the Ben Whiteley film, what's it called, A Field in England, because that was released in cinemas, released on DVD and shown on TV all on the same day. So and there have been other examples, like the more embarrassing example would be the Tower Heist, the Brett Ratner film.
Oh yeah.
They were going to charge $60 for a rental, and you're thinking, who on earth is going to be mad enough to pay $60 to rent a mediocre Brett Ratner movie?
Oh my gosh.
And because of the outrage from the cinema chains, Universal ended up pulling stopping the experiment.
Yeah, I don't blame them.
Yeah, I don't know why they put it at such a high price point, but obviously, essentially, the pandemic has accelerated things. There's obviously lots of films, obviously Wonder Woman. 1984 was probably one of the big examples of this. They really Disney had Warner Brothers releasing it in cinemas and in theaters, cinemas and on HBO Max at the same time. Or in many countries that don't have HBO Max, it was a digital rental.
Yeah, which it's a little bit less fun.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand I don't understand how anyone could pay $15.99 for a digital rental, though, because it seems
that's insane to me.
Yeah, you're thinking that's the same sort of price for the Blu-ray. You may as well wait a few months and then get the Blu-ray at that price, and then at least then you got it forever.
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think of it. The studios are going to force their way into this, force this upon us, no matter what. Maximize their profits.
Yeah, and like we talked about, though, there's degrees to which it happens. The Warner Brothers model, which I think is ultimately, assuming things continue nothing gets shut down again this fall, which is always up in the air at this point, it's gonna hurt them, because once more and more of their films start getting released later on this year, people are just gonna watch the HBO Max version, and that doesn't actually line their pockets the way they want to.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the theories why In the Heights didn't do so well in the box office in America, because it was on HBO Max.
Yeah, I watched it the day it came out on HBO Max. I was not going to go to a theater to see it, though, because and to be fair, I've seen the stage show. I've paid money to Lin-Manuel Miranda to see In the Heights before, but I wasn't going to go to a movie theater when I could sit on my sofa and watch it for essentially free.
Yeah, I got a free preview screening anyway. That's why I got to see it.
And then there's the interesting thing Disney's doing too, where it's putting big tentpole films under a premium banner, so you pay the extra money for them, like Black Widow. But then something like Luca, which is a good Pixar film, completely never got a release in the theaters. Nobody even knew it was coming out until it had already dropped on Disney Plus, and that's part of the subscription price. So you can watch a good Pixar film, not great, but it's a good one, and it's good for families and kids without paying the extra. But what does that do for them financially? If they're willing to, make you pay for the Raya cartoon, but you don't have to pay for Luca, how does this work? That's my question for them.
I was thinking like Disney Plus would end up just being Disney's dumping ground because obviously we saw that last year of Artemis Fowl, because
Artemis Fowl.
Because obviously they knew they had a turkey on their hands. Just say it's get it exclusively on Disney Plus and try and spin a negative into a positive.
God, I'd forgotten Artemis Fowl even existed until you mentioned it, and now I'm frustrated and angry about everything that happened with Artemis Fowl.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I was already angry about the book series and how that ended. So,
all right. Yeah, I do think the simultaneous releasing model, though, is probably would be very beneficial for smaller films, though, because if you're a smaller indie film, like an indie drama, you're going to have a niche audience for cinemas. You're probably only going to be shown like the smaller art house cinemas. So, and obviously those sort of cinemas are more based in the big cities,
Mm-hmm.
or or universities, towns, or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's probably a good way to try and at least maximize your audience that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I get during the at least in the UK, when we had this, we're trying to release and do the lockdown in the summer last year. There were quite a few films that were being released in the cinemas, like the sort of more art on the sort of more arty side and smaller scale side, and also being released on premium as a digital release or digital rental at the same time.
Yeah, and there's certain films that I'm totally willing to pay money to watch online. One of my things every year is I try to watch every Best Picture nominee. And, yes, I live near a major city, so I can usually find a theater playing all of them. But, it's expensive to constantly go to the theater to see smaller theaters to go see smaller releases.
Yeah.
So I certainly wouldn't say no to getting the opportunity to stream some of them, and I'd pay money to stream them because it'll probably be cheaper than going and parking and finding a theater that's going to play a smaller Best Picture nominee.
Yeah. I think generally like those sort of smaller theatres, because I've mentioned it before, the little theatre in Bath, they do have a very loyal clientele, because certainly definitely a lot of older people, cinephiles, they go there all the time. They show their loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
So I think even with the simultaneous releasing model, they're still going to go to places like that.
Yeah, and I think we've proven. We asked this question last year in the height of the pandemic: is will theaters survive? And I think we've seen that they're going to. Um, and I think we've also seen that there could be a future for simultaneous releases moving forward. If you can pull down, $60 million in Disney Plus, well, that's showing other studios that there's a market for people to watch these films at home as well.
Yeah. I think this is probably also going to be the best way to try and tackle piracy overall. If you can either have the option to either watch the film in the cinemas or have, say, Disney release it on Disney Plus and probably do a digital rental as well on whatever other services like Amazon or Apple or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think it was also like some streaming services, they are looking to diversify their portfolios as well, because there have been rumors like Netflix have been like trying to buy. They've already brought that a famous, was it the Paris cinema in New York?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there have been rumors of them buying one of the cinema chains as well. So again, as I said, diversify their portfolio.
Yeah, Netflix is in an interesting conundrum too, where that they're creating films that they want to be able to qualify for award season. In order to do that, they have to play in theaters, and what better way to do that than to buy up actual physical theaters and do it? Because if you look at Netflix's place in the streaming wars now, they may be pulling in more money, but they're not really the top dog when it comes to new content.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, was the South Park joke. It goes, hello, hello, speaking to Netflix, you're greenlit. Who am I speaking to? Yeah. There is another side to this coin, though, because I remember, because Sky Cinema in the UK, they do something, they have been releasing more films, both been making films and getting the distributing rights for a lot of films. One of the first they did was like a Chinese animated film called Rock Dog. I was with my brother when we saw the advert, and he goes, well, I'll paraphrase, how bad has that film have to be released? to be released on Sky Cinema. Yeah. So there is that potential risk that those sort of films might be seen as lesser films.
Yeah, and I mean that comes down to building up your brand. I mean, you know, look at something like Apple TV Plus here in the States. You know, when it initially started, it didn't really have anything. It just had a bunch of really famous people making not great television. And in the last year, it's created a massive hit in the show Ted Lasso that I don't think they saw coming, and it's churning out generally solid shows now. And so it went from being an afterthought to turn itself into a brand in the span of a year, which is pretty great.
Yeah. I mean, I joked when they said they got the rights to the film Greyhound. I was thinking, so that means no one's going to watch it then.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah.
I went from like never recommending Apple TV Plus to anybody to the last 6 months. That's the one thing I've recommended to every single person I know, largely for Ted Lasso. But there's other good shows on there too.
Yeah.
The movie's not so great, but there's good shows.
Yeah, it's going back to one of our previous discussions, that sort of race for content and the sort of big bidding war. The problem being, if it's going to be the problem is that, as we've said before, these streaming services are probably going to end up cannibalizing themselves at some point, because no one's going to pay for 12 dozen different services for every type of content.
Yeah, and that comes back to this whole simultaneous release idea is, you've got movie studios who are responsible essentially for releasing the films. Not every one of those movie studios has a streaming service. In fact, most don't. But, what does that mean? The movie studios are going to throw in with the streaming service, create their own streaming service, team up so that they have a platform on which to simultaneously release films? Is that something we're going to see moving forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. I also think as well, like, because I'm an advocate for physical media, I do think, and some studios seem to be very hesitant, like, we say, like, Disney Plus won't release things like The Mandalorian or WandaVision or whatever on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And I just think that's just an insane decision, because obviously not everyone's going to subscribe to Disney Plus for whatever reason. They might probably would, and you can imagine, like, Star Wars fans, Marvel fans, even though if they got Disney Plus, they probably want the physical copy as well.
Yeah, and I mean, Disney has such a weird relationship to the physical media.
Yeah.
With like their Disney vault and things going in and not coming out for 20 years. So I'm not surprised based on what they've done in the past with things, but still, it's so annoying.
Yeah. And I would be quite interested, like, because I quite like Outlaw King. I wouldn't mind having that on DVD or Blu-ray. Basically, Braveheart, if a lot more historically accurate. Or I saw a screener for a film called The Power, which is on Shudder, the horrors, which is a specialist service because it's horror. But again, some people might like horror a little bit, but they might not want to have the whole horror streaming service. Or same like, was it Mubi? They do lots of art house and world cinema. They do release some of their films on physical release, but not all of them. And they also they also release films in cinemas as well. So obviously, again, everyone diverse, just making sure they've got their bases covered.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting climate at the moment. I do think that something's got to give at some point, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The streaming wars, because some things are just going to be unprofitable, then, aren't they?
Yeah, and the one thing I'm really intrigued by is the release of Dune this October.
Yeah. Because
there's been so much pushback from the secondary studio, from the cast, about the simultaneous release of it, which I get. It's a massive, huge film you should see on a big screen. but also, I'm betting there's deals at the back end and
Yeah,
they're not going to get what the cuts they want and all that. And I'm interested to see if they end up sticking to their guns and releasing it simultaneously or not.
I don't think they will, but I read on, I think it might have been the Wrap or someone, like Warner Brothers have already said that they're not going to release their 2022 slate on HBO Max. So, well, obviously in the sense, not at the same time as in the cinemas.
Right. Well, Dune comes out this October though, so it's
Yeah,
technically still within
I think they've already.
2021.
I think they're already stated that it's not go. I think that's going to be cinema exclusive, and that is another factor. Like some film, like they're now some films to advertise exclusively in theaters or in cinemas. They make it a big triumph.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only way you can go see it.
Yeah. It's obviously again, it'll be interesting to see how the pandemic plays out because we're recording this on the 18th, and on the 18th of July, on the 19th, a lot of restrictions are being lifted in the UK, in the England, should I say, to be more precise. So it's going to be interesting. So yeah, we're going to basically be the world's canary.
I mean, there's no restrictions in Illinois right now.
Yeah.
There's no restrictions throughout the most United States, actually.
All right.
So we've been doing this for about a month now without them.
All right. Well, they don't mention that. They always talk about because they talk about the case numbers going up, but
They
the
are.
hospitalizations are going up, but not anywhere near as much. And same, like the numbers of deaths are a lot lower.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's almost exclusively people who aren't vaccinated now who are hospitalized or dying.
Yeah.
So it's state by state too. It depends on where area you're in.
Yeah. I just want to lick strangers again. Yeah, there's a thought for you all.
I think I will avoid that for the foreseeable future.
Okay. So yeah, I think admittedly this discussion turned out a bit more rambling than I intended it to. But I think this is kind of well, not quite shop talk, but it's sort of more industry talk than compared to say the more franchise-based ones we have done.
Well, I mean, the industry changes and ebbs and flows impact the big tentpole films just as much as anything.
Yeah. Thank you very much. As usual, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.